I couldn't escape that thought all day, Dibs.
Yeah?
It's a rock band. It's a rock band, and it's probably getting about time to break up. And I mean that in a different way of like, trade Draymond or don't re-sign Clay. There's an aspect of this that's inevitable. There's just an aspect of this that's inevitable.
We talked about that, but I thought the inevitability wasn't going to be for years. And that to me is the part that I'm frustrated by because, yes, we thought that it was inevitable. And you're right. Everything is inevitable. You and I and this great radio show that we have, this great radio station. Heck, radio itself, Mark, the end of radio is inevitable. But the inevitability of the Warriors should not have been 24 games into this year. It should not have been this fast. The inevitability should have been after one. It should have been, okay, this year goes the way this year goes. And, Clay diminishes a little bit and Wiggins is finding himself and Draymond does what Draymond does and Steph is still good. And you go 42-40 and you're the 8th seed and you lose in the play-in game. That's a bummer. You try again next year. And next year, everybody gets a little bit worse. And you go 40-42 and you're the 9th seed and you make it through the play-in game and you win a series and then you lose in the semis. And then you try again and everybody gets a little bit worse and then you go 30-52. And in year 3, it's like, okay, Steph is 37 and these guys are all 35. And now we know that the end is nigh. The end is near. The inevitability should not have happened before the end of this calendar year.
I guess it depends on what you're talking about. See, I would argue.
I just laid it out. I know what I'm talking about.
But I would argue that we were well past that already. This has already been happening. They already lost in the playoffs.
Right, but this feels like they're falling off the cliff. Klay Thompson's getting benched.
It feels like
Andrew Wiggins is unplayable.
Right, but that's in the moment. We don't know.
Draymond Green is literally not playing because he can't control his anger.
But we don't know how the story ends. It's, you know what I mean? Like we can go, it's over, but it's not because they all still have uniforms and lockers. Well, so like
Draymond doesn't really have a uniform.
Yeah, but he does. He actually can
practice.
He'll practice with the team.
Attaboy.
We're talking about practice.
Yeah, we are.
You know what I mean? Clay might hit 5 threes tonight. I have no idea what the hell's going to happen next, which is the beauty of all of it.
Of course.
My point, though, is the inevitability. I mean this much more as a view from 10,000 feet than where we sit today in the frustration of Clay can't shoot, Andrew doesn't show up, and Draymond doesn't play for the team for a while. I mean this more so from the standpoint of when major, iconic pieces, groups come together and they grow together and they build and they become big and then they become large and then they become gargantuan. This is what happens. It explodes like rock bands staying together, iconic rock bands. You get a Rolling Stones once, maybe. Once, where it's like, yep, same people, and now we're old, and we're just still touring, and we still high-five one another at the end of the show. They become such big brands. They become so rich. They've all got their own sort of blueprint and interests of what they want to do next, and it becomes very, very difficult for everybody to stay blended, and that's where we are. Draymond Green should never, in a perfect world, have gotten to a point where he's so big that he's empowered to just be like, not only did I do that, I'm going to do it again, and you can tell me to stop doing it, and then I'll do it twice. How the hell does that happen when, in theory, you're the third most important band member? I'll never say that you weren't vital. You were.
He's the bass player, you're saying, or the drummer?
People will have these conversations about, well, we couldn't have won without Dre. Maybe, probably. Could Dre have won without Steph? Laughable. So how do you handle it when those who are actually not out front, you're not the lead singer, but you become so big that you've got your own podcast and your own future and your own brand and your own interests? It becomes almost impossible to stay together. And for me, that's what this year has felt like. It feels like the big three are on three separate journeys. They're all trying to figure it out. So far, none of them have.
Right. And why are all three trying to figure it out? And, why are they trying to figure it out the way they're trying to figure it out? Steph is trying to figure out how to beat Tom Brady and how to continue to be elite and great into his late 30s and early 40s. And he's on a nice track. Now, is he a little bit down from last year and the year before? Probably. That doesn't mean he's still not one of the 5 or 7 or 10 best players in the association, because he is. Klay Thompson is in a contract year and he's hunting it and he's searching for it and he's having the worst year of his career, and it's getting worse because he's thinking about it and he's grinding over it. And now he can't even finish games because his coach has rightfully lost confidence in Klay because Klay's not getting it done. And then Draymond's on a whole separate track. Draymond is, I don't know what Draymond's motivation is, or if he's even motivated at all, or if he's just in such a place that he can't control it anymore. Like, he used to be able to control it to where he wouldn't commit these acts that result in these punishments. He would get into scuffles. He would get texts. He would get ejected. He would cost his team games. He would commit flagrants. But now we're at a point where every single thing he does is monitored, watched, and punished 10 times more than it would have been.
I mean, you ever watch the show Friends?
Of course. We watch it every night before bed. That's actually
still?
That's now our in-bed show.
HBO Max?
We watch it on...
Or is it just on... it's on Nickelodeon.
It must be Nickelodeon.
Around the clock.
Yes,
Yeah,
so we get in bed usually about 10 or 10:30. I clean the kitchen.
That's adorable, by the way.
It's pretty cute.
It's like a Sacramento King.
No, it's pretty neat.
Really
so
is.
we put baby down about 8:30. We watch some Bravo TV because that's what the wife likes, and I watch my sports on my phone or my laptop, and then we get in bed and we put on Friends because we want something that's easy, innocuous, and simple.
6 actors, largely unknown. 2 of them a little bit. 4 of them not at all. All of a sudden, iconic. And
who are the 2 known, by the way? Jennifer Aniston.
Courtney Cox a little bit. No, I'd argue Jennifer was a complete unknown. Courtney Cox a little bit.
Going in.
And Matt LeBlanc a little bit. Maybe a touch of Matthew Perry, but nobody was big.
Yeah.
And then within 2 years, they're all iconic.
Right.
And do you remember when they did a band together strike? And they were like, we're not coming back until all of us gets $1 million an episode.
Yeah.
And the network was like, hell no. And then a week later, the network's like, here's $1 million an episode. And you're all going to come back. And then you start to see what happens through the years. And I was reminded of Matthew Perry, and may he rest in peace, but I was reminded of Matthew Perry for a period of time, left the show and the taping for a little bit because he had a problem. He had a drug problem. And off he went, and he had to leave the show indefinitely. And then he came back. And you have a 6-person iconic group that have all gone their separate ways, and some have been more successful than others. And Matthew was the one who really had the inner demons, and now he is no longer with us. That's a little bit of, that's a much more serious version of what Draymond is. But you notice sort of like, I've always noticed this. That's what happens when a whole group becomes iconic. You're all these massive individual brands now, and it's very difficult for everyone to handle that the same way. Klay gets introspective, seems to be mad at himself all the time.
Yeah.
Steph's the one who's like, dude, I'm here and I'm fine and I'm older than you guys. Why can't you come with me? And Draymond is the one who is just self-destructive, like Matthew Perry.
Yeah.
And every band has that. Actually, in the rock band, sometimes all of them are. But, Kurt Cobain, self-destruct. Like, right? Lane Staley, self-destruct. Like, that's what happens. And that's been my feeling now, especially when they won the last one, which was so great. And we all loved it so much because it felt so much more organic and homegrown and unexpected.
Yeah.
But they came out of that just with like, yo, we've now checked every single box. And how do you handle that? Now it's stratospheric. How do you handle that? And they have all struggled one way or another since then to really stay there. And they probably won't.
Well, you can't stay there. And that's part of the beauty of sports is that as you get older, other teams come up. And if you look around the Western Conference, there are many, many younger, more athletic teams that are probably better. So now you're 2 years removed or a year and a half removed from your title, and you're older, and teams know you because they've watched you. And some of these players actually were in high school or they were teenagers or kids when you won your first title. So they've all seen you. So now if you're a 20-year-old NBA star in the making and you're coming up and you watch these guys when you were 11 or 12 years old win titles, you're coming for them. So everybody's coming for you, and you're older, and internally you're broken. Draymond Green is flying off the handle. Kevon Looney is having a down year. Andrew Wiggins, you might as well not even put your uniform on the way you're playing because you're even more of a non-factor than your non-factor days. Klay Thompson is really off his game, and Steph Curry is left kind of holding the bag and getting frustrated because Steph Curry is about 95% of what he was 2 years ago, and he looks around and he's got no help.
888-957-9570, where it's likely heading, if I buy my own analogy here of the rock band, if Steph Curry's the lead singer, quite frankly, the truth of the matter is you can come back with a new guitarist, and the average fan really isn't even going to notice. Now, this is different. Klay Thompson's not just a guitarist, but the truth of the matter is we've all seen bands who do this. You've seen Journey's tour over the last few years. Steve Perry's not in the band anymore.
No.
He's at Giants games in the box. That's the only time he's singing now. But they've got somebody who sounds like Steve Perry. Okay. And they're touring and they're filling out arenas, and all the people who are somewhere around our age or north of it are singing from the top of their lungs, and they're having a great time, and they'll spend $150 for tickets and they don't give a rip. The probability here is that the Warriors need to go find a new Draymond Green. And find a new Klay Thompson.
You can't find him, though. That's the problem.
Very difficult to find.
Different from a rock band where a rock and roll guitarist can come in and play the notes, and he can bob his head with long hair. You can't find another Draymond Green.
Probably not.
It's probably closer to being the Beastie Boys, where they lost one of the Beastie Boys.
And that was a wrap.
And that's it.
And that's a wrap.
And
right?
Tribe Called Quest.
I mean, yeah.
It's over.
Dave Grohl saw what happened to Kurt Cobain and said, I'm going to go start my own band.
Sure.
We're not going to wait and still call this Nirvana.
So Steph's going to Charlotte is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying.
That would be the equivalent.
I'm saying that it's likely. I don't know how the Warriors do this, and this is a long story that will unfold.
Right.
But the likelihood is if the Warriors do want to, it's so interesting. We've been talking about maximizing the end of Steph Curry's career. And what we've thought that meant for so long was another younger acquisition next to the big three. Well, maybe maximizing the rest of Steph Curry's career is actually turning the big three into the big one. Maybe that's what they need to do. Yeah. I don't know if we're there yet.
Easier said than done.
Of course. Of course.
Because who's trading for either one of those other two in the big two?
You don't need to trade Klay Thompson. You can simply let the contract expire.
Right, but you can't replace him with a $42 million guy because you're so far above the tax threshold.
But you don't need a $42 million guy. You need a younger guy.
You can replace him with an $8 million guy.
No, or more. There are ways. There are always ways.
Yeah, it's a little tougher in the NBA than it is in the NFL.